Welcome to the Control Tower, focused learners. Today's simulation is a genuine, high-stakes masterclass on a topic that behaves like an incoming heavy aircraft in the middle of a thunderstorm for most Cambridge AS and A-level accounting students. We are talking about the working capital cycle calculation. Now, if you are sitting there right now and you know you've been losing critical points on this exact topic and you are not exactly sure why your answers keep missing the mark, you are in the exact right place. Today, I am acting as your elite exam tower director. We are going to dig straight into our radar system, specifically the unfiltered principal examiner reports, to reveal exactly how grading works for this notoriously tricky, high-tariff past paper question. By the end of this explainer, you won't just know how to crunch the numbers. No, you are going to learn how to manage extreme time pressure, prioritize those high-yield marks, and think exactly like the examiner who is clearing your paper for landing. We are going to lock in on your stress management, stabilize your approach, and get you those top-tier grades. All right, let's initialize the radar grid and dive into this right away with a direct transmission from the ones holding the red pens. The examiners themselves literally state, working capital cycle calculation is one of the most misunderstood areas in accounting. Listen, if you've struggled here, validate that feeling right now. You are not alone. The examiners flag this as a massive red alert pain point. It's a spot where candidates consistently hemorrhage easy marks. And here is the fascinating part. It is not necessarily because they don't grasp the underlying math. It's because they completely misunderstand what the assessment is actually asking them to demonstrate under pressure. In my experience, students usually default to one of two archetypes when the exam pressure hits. Let's call them Router Alex and Router Sam. Now, Router Alex is the candidate who gets completely bogged down in minor details. Alex writes out paragraphs and paragraphs defining what a receivable is, creating this infinite holding pattern of basic knowledge without ever moving the analysis forward. On the flip side, we have Router Sam. Sam is moving way too fast. Sam clears arguments for landing without verifying any of the structural safety regulations, just slapping down a final number, writing a one-sentence conclusion, and rushing to the next page. Both Alex and Sam are going to lose massive marks here. We are going to train you to avoid both of these extremes so you can execute a flawless landing. To secure those marks, we are following a strict 4-step flight plan today. First, core concepts. Second, the procedural framework. Third, critical analysis. And finally, the examiner warnings. Section 1. Core concepts demystified. Let's look at the theoretical foundations. Listen to me carefully on this. You absolutely cannot build a high-scoring answer on a shaky foundation. The working capital cycle is not just a disconnected, random formula that you memorize late at night while chugging an energy drink. It is a complete theoretical architecture. It's a conceptual framework. Grasping precise terminology and understanding the causal relationships, like exactly how a change in inventory days directly impacts your immediate cash flow, is completely non-negotiable for this tier. It relies on systematic analysis and evidence-based reasoning. You have to know how the cycle actually operates in the living, breathing, real world of a business to explain it effectively on paper. If you don't understand the underlying currents of why money moves the way it does, your arguments are going to lose altitude the second you try to apply them to a complex scenario. Now let's look at the actual explicit assessment objectives, because this is where we map out your approach vector. Memorization alone is going to fail you, and this chart shows exactly why. Look at how the cognitive domains targeted by the examiners are split. Knowledge and understanding, that only gets you 33% of the way there. Another 33% is locked behind analysis, and a massive 34%, the biggest single slice of the pie, is dedicated strictly to evaluation. Think back to our student archetypes. Router Alex spends 20 minutes writing a beautiful textbook definition of working capital. Alex is stuck in that first 33%. You can write the best descriptive paragraph in the world, but if you are only describing the cycle, you automatically cap your score at a third of the available marks. That is a brutal reality check if you've spent hours just drilling flashcards. On the other hand, Router Sam calculates the days perfectly, getting the analysis marks, but then writes a generic one-line conclusion. Sam completely misses that final 34% evaluation chunk. To get the A-star, to be the elite candidate, you must demonstrate absolute competence across all three of these domains simultaneously. You have to identify the issue, analyze the data, and then evaluate what it actually means for the survival of the business.
Tower transmission check. Before we clear this specific response for touchdown, we need to ensure your transponder is updated with the latest frequency. Pause what you are doing, subscribe to Ace the Exams right now, and turn on all notifications so you never miss one of these emergency simulations. All right, resuming the approach. How do you actually push your answer into those elite higher scoring brackets? Lean in, because this is a massive insider pro tip pulled directly from the examiner reports. Integrating the working capital cycle with other syllabus areas is the absolute secret to unlocking top-tier grades. Examiners call this referencing cross-topic connections. If you can casually but accurately tie your working capital calculation into a discussion about liquidity ratios, or investment appraisal, or even variance analysis, the examiner immediately recognizes you as a high-caliber candidate. You aren't just looking at one isolated instrument panel, you are flying the whole plane. You are showing them that you understand the macro picture of the entire accounting syllabus.
Section 2. The Procedural Framework. Securing the Method Mark Strategy. This section right here is all about the methodology of tackling a complex, high-pressure past paper problem. When you open that exam booklet and see a massive data table, your heart rate is going to spike. I want to reassure you right now, as your exam tower director, demonstrating the correct process is just as vital as finding that final numerical answer. When you are staring down an intimidating calculation, you need a strict, standardized 5-step sequence to survive it without burning through your exam time. Step 1. Deconstruct the question. What exactly are they asking for? Don't assume, read the actual verb. Step 2. Carefully extract the relevant data from the stimulus materials. This is where you filter out the noise. Step 3. Select your analytical framework. Step 4. Execute your analysis with incredibly clear working notation. And step 5, verify your results and present them cleanly. We call this the method mark strategy. Why is this so crucial? Because if you are under immense stress and you make a simple calculator typo in step 4, maybe you punch in a 5 instead of a 6, your final answer will be wrong. But if you have followed this sequence and left a transparent, perfectly annotated trail of your step-by-step working, the examiner can see exactly what you were trying to do. That is how you salvage massive partial credit. You save your grade by proving your logic was sound, even if the final calculation was off by a decimal point. Now, executing the math in your head or scribbling it in the margins just isn't going to cut it. Presentation is a professional skill. In our simulation, bad presentation is basically debris on the runway. The source material emphatically points out that presenting information must follow strict conventions. We're talking proper headings, correct terminology, appropriate formats, and crystal clear annotation. If your numbers are just floating randomly on a blank page without labels, examiners literally cannot award you those method marks. They aren't going to guess what your numbers mean. You have to treat your exam paper as a legally binding professional financial document. If you hand a messy, unannotated spreadsheet to a CEO in the real world, you're getting fired. Treat the examiner with that same level of professional respect. Section 3. Critical Analysis Skills. Elevating your evaluation. All right, we are entering the interactive runway workshop portion of this explainer. We already established that evaluation makes up 34% of your grade. So how do you actually write an evaluative answer that satisfies those higher order assessment objectives without panicking? Often students hit a complete structural block mid-paragraph, they state a fact, and then they just stop, having no idea what to write next. True critical analysis requires you to actively interrogate the data you've just calculated. You don't just proudly state that the working capital cycle is 45 days, drop your pen, and move on. No, you have to identify the limitations of that number. What assumptions were deliberately made in the stimulus material? Are there alternate interpretations for why inventory days are suddenly extending? Is it a supply chain issue, or is the product just becoming obsolete? And finally, assessing the effect on conclusions. How do these specific factors affect the final strategic decisions of the business? If you ever feel your paragraph stalling out, mentally deploy the Peel formatting template to get your sentence back onto the glide slope. Point, evidence, evaluation, link. Make your point, back it up with the data you extracted, evaluate its limitations, and link it straight back to the core question. That is exactly what examiners mean when they demand evidence-based reasoning. I want you to visually lock in on this slide, because there is a massive difference between the descriptive answers examiners see way too often and the evaluative answers they desperately want to reward. Lower order skills are simply descriptive. It's just listing facts. It's our friend Router Alex writing down everything they memorized without actually applying it. Higher order marks demand that you evaluate alternatives, compare different approaches the business could theoretically take to improve their cycle, and ultimately provide heavily justified recommendations. You have to step up, take a definitive stand as a financial advisor, and back up your strategic recommendation with the exact data you just extracted and calculated. If the business is bleeding cash, tell them exactly what lever to pull to survive, and use the math to prove why your approach is the safest bet. And remember, when you are in the thick of this comparative analysis, it requires exploring similarities and differences. This is a common place where students inadvertently drop points. You must support both sides of the argument with hard evidence to draw robust, bulletproof conclusions about their relative importance. Here's a brilliant tactical maneuver for your writing. Forcefully use comparative connectives. Words and phrases like conversely, however, in contrast, or on the other hand. These aren't just filler words. They are incredibly effective, high-visibility signposts that flash on the examiner's radar, telling them, hey, pay attention. I am actively evaluating right now. Please award me those higher-order marks. It signals sophisticated, structured thought.
Section 4. Top Examiner Warnings. Avoiding the classic pitfalls.
We've reached the climax of our simulation. We are on final approach. These are direct, unfiltered, and, frankly, urgent insights from the principal examiner reports detailing exactly where thousands of candidates consistently crash and burn. Avoiding these 3 classic pitfalls is literally the fastest way to instantly boost your grade. Let's rapid fire through them. Warning number 1. Forgetting to include proper format in the calculation. This means no dollar signs, no day counts, just naked numbers. You lose incredibly easy marks. Warning number 2, failing to check your presentation entirely, crossing things out wildly, making it impossible for the examiner to read your logic. But it's warning number 3 that is the ultimate catastrophic error. Listen closely. Providing generic answers that are not explicitly linked to the specific context of the question. This is an absolute, blaring, red light examiner alert. You could write a beautifully accurate, grammatically flawless paragraph about the general theory of working capital, but if you do not strictly link every single point to the exact scenario, the specific industry, and the unique data provided in that specific past paper, you will score a brutal 0 for that section. Context is the runway. If you don't line up with the context, you cannot land the points, period.
Before we initiate the safe touchdown sequence, I want to deploy a highly practical takeaway straight from our subject specialists. Look, the exam room is an intense environment. Adrenaline is pumping, and it is so incredibly easy to freeze up on the exact sequence of the cycle. You need to manage your time fiercely. Think of your exam time as a fuel-to-mark budget. You cannot afford to burn 10 minutes of fuel just trying to remember a basic sequence. The best memory hack for this? Create your own personal mnemonic device using the first letters of the key terms, inventory, receivables, payables, to permanently lock in the correct sequence. Having that mental shortcut securely packed and ready to deploy will save you precious minutes of fuel and drastically reduce your exam anxiety. Which brings us to our final provocative thought to close out today's simulation. When you are doing your revision, are your practice answers genuinely linked to the specific context of the business, or are you just comfortably regurgitating generic theory? Next time you sit down with a past paper, I want you to be your own exam tower director. Evaluate your own writing against everything we've mapped out today. Check your presentation, show your method steps with absolute clarity, and above all else, contextualize every single claim you make. If you found this emergency breakdown valuable and it helped clarify your approach vector, keep following along. Ensure you subscribe to AC Exams, enable the notification bell so you're ready for our next transmission, and drop a comment down below right now sharing exactly which past paper gives you the most anxiety. We'll translate that complex source material into clear, actionable strategies for you. Until next time, keep analyzing, manage your clock, and happy studying.